Yo, what's up, guys? So, check it out. Today, what I want to do here is go over a podcast episode from Chris Williamson's Modern Wisdom. And he's talking to this gentleman named Rich Roll. Rich is an endurance athlete, he's a wellness advocate, and he's also a podcaster and an author. And it sounds like Rich has really gone through a transformation process. And when I listened to this podcast, there were so many things that are relatable, especially in light of what we're doing at the Sovereign Mindset, especially the Strongman Challenge, where we're actually putting forth concentrated effort in transforming our lives. And I think to hear from someone who's gone through that process and come out the other end and found success, I think it could be very helpful. It could be inspirational. It can be motivational. And for us who are going through the grind right now, who sometimes our thoughts are clouded with uncertainty, doubt, and so forth, right? I think that what Rich did here in this podcast was provide a lot of valuable insight in that journey and how you yourself can overcome. And just to hear someone who's gone through it, right, to feel like you're not alone, is very, yeah, very valuable, very worthwhile to listen to. So I highly recommend you check it out. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play this and I'm going to stop it at the points where I think there's value to be found, and I can add more insight or more clarity. So that's what I hope to do. Um, there's so many podcasts, so many things that I listen to where I just absorb that information and I want a way to capture that and to really just highlight the most important parts and bring them to you so you guys can capture that value. I'll put in the work, I'll bring it to you, and where I can add value, I'll do that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. This is the first time I'm working this technology, so check that out. It's coming along. So I'm just going to play it here. We're going to listen, and then I will, like I said, I'll just add my comments wherever I see fit.
At what age did you start sorting your life out?
It's a good question. I think the moment where I began to really look inward and take stock and inventory of my life legitimately for the first time was probably when I was 31 and found myself in a treatment center in rural Oregon, faced with confronting a decade plus problem with drugs and alcohol. Nowhere to escape, just a bunch of counselors and a bucolic countryside and 100 days to really start to understand why I had ended up in this place, which certainly was not the plan for my life, I can tell you, and what I was going to do about it in order to create a new life for myself that would be more in alignment with a truer version of who I was. I didn't know the answer to that question, but that's where that very long journey probably began consciously.
It seems to me that a good chunk of your story is a series of reinventions.
Yes. I think that we are all reinventing ourselves all the time. I've said this before, but I think the great delusion that we walk around with is that we are in some kind of perpetual stasis. We are the way we are. The world is the way that it is. This person behaves this way. They're always going to behave that way. But the reality is that everything is changing all the time, from the subatomic level all the way to the vastness of the universe. There is no stasis. Everything is in flux and is in motion. The question is, how much are you directing that change versus reacting to the world around you? And yes, my life has been punctuated by a couple kind of significant Rubicon changes or reinventions, to be sure. But I'm always in the process of trying to evaluate where I'm at, where I want to be, where I want to head to. But yeah, I've had a couple sort of moments in my life that were sort of line in the sand moments for sure.
Awesome. So I'm going to stop it right there. There's three things that I pulled out from that. So number one is that I think the pinnacle of self-actualization, let's say, right, is having your thoughts and your actions become aligned with, you know, your true self, let's say, right? Your inner self. Now, it's easy to say, but most people don't even know what their true self is, what their values are, what their principles are. They've never gone through the process of actually crafting their identity, right? Crafting their frame. And so, I think that's really the first place where someone has to start, is figuring that process out. Now, the other thing that Rich said that I found interesting is that we are kind of always going through some type of perpetual change. We're always growing, we're always evolving. We're never stuck in the same place unless we choose to, right? So, if you're in a bad situation now, it doesn't mean that you have to be in a bad situation in the future. Right? Having that understanding, knowing that things can turn around, things can go in a different direction, is a huge mental shift that, if you can adopt, will really help you on your journey. And the third thing is, as we start to reorient our actions, our beliefs, how much of it, or as we go through this change, how much of it is conscious? How much of it is directed by you? These are important questions, important things that we should consider as we go through our transformation journey.
Yeah, you have this really famous tweet talking about all of the things you've done successfully and the fact that you didn't do them before a particular age. Hadn't started my podcast until I hadn't run my first endurance race until I didn't write my first book until. And I think in an age where social media allows us to see successes from people very young, it gives a good bit of solace to people who feel like, I'm 40 now. I'm on the back nine, and I haven't even started swinging the golf club yet.
I know what that feels like. I was that guy. Certainly, you can always reinvent yourself. There's always hope. There's always opportunity. I think now more than ever, with all the tools that are available to people to craft their own career paths, to find ways to support themselves through pursuits that they're curious about or that light them up. I think this is a real golden age in terms of that. But that didn't exist when I was your age or when I was younger. And I grew up in a very traditional household. Education was paramount. Expectations were set very high. And I learned early and often how to play that game of upward mobility. I was an awkward, insecure kid who had difficulty making friends. But at some point, I locked in on the sport of swimming. And that's a whole story I'm happy to go into.
All right, cool. So there's also two important points here, right? First one is comparing yourself to others and how disappointing that can be. And we really need to put things into perspective. I think he mentions it here where, right now we live in the golden age of becoming, your own independent, sovereign individual, right? Like, we're in this state where all the tools are available for us to craft our identity, to pursue our passions, and to make a living from it. And, we should be really grateful for it. Here's the thing, though. There's people who have grown up in this environment, and that's all they know. So, you have kids out there who are multimillionaires, right? Because they figured out, hey, if I build an audience, and I can build an audience from not even producing anything of real substance, right? Just pure mindless entertainment. They can make a lot of money. And so you see this happening and you say, well, what's the point of all of this? What was the point of my struggle? You get almost nihilistic, almost, down about the journey that you're on, because it seems like these young kids out there, they just walked right into it, and everything is handed to them. Basically, they've grown up in it. They didn't have to struggle for anything. um but I think it's important to recognize that we're all on our own path, we're all on our own journey. um so what if other people got it easier? So what does that have to do with you? You're on your own path, and comparing yourself to other people is just a sure way of making sure that you fail. A sure way of becoming disoriented, a sure way of becoming disappointed. So whenever you see yourself doing that, I think that you should immediately stop. It's okay to you know find people you want to compete with. Competition can be good. It can propel you forward, right? But make sure you're comparing apples to apples, right? Make sure that your competition is within the realm of what you're doing, right? So that was one point. The other point is that, yeah, guys, we should be grateful. We live in a golden age of opportunity, and you can reinvent yourself now at any age. You can do what you want to do at any age. Yeah, it's going to take work, but man, what else can be more fulfilling than exploring and building the things that interests you, right? And actually trying to make money from it. Enjoy the journey. Go through the process, enjoy the journey, and be grateful for this opportunity and this time that we're living in.
And what I learned in the swimming pool transferred into the classroom, and I became a better student. I had always struggled in school, but by the time I graduated from high school, I was top of my class and got very good at playing the game of getting into all the colleges and going to the right place and getting the right job without ever any self-reflection on what it was that I wanted to do or what excited me or what was unique about me or how I wanted to show up in the world or express myself. I was just trying to excel. And that path was very narrow at the time. Like, go to this school, get this job, show up early, work late, sort of climb that corporate ladder. Went to law school, was on the partnership track at a law firm, did all of that, and had to basically suffer an existential and health crisis as a reckoning in order to look inward on myself and reflect upon the reasons why I made those decisions, why they were leading me astray, and begin the process of opening the aperture of my vision to allow space for something new and different.
What do you think people get wrong about reinvention? Like, what is it that the people who fail to turn their life around do?
I think people think it's a magic trick. They snap their fingers, they make a decision, and their life is different overnight. I think there's a lack of appreciation of everything that goes into the moment where you change your mind and you do something different, and then all of the work that goes in to that rebuilding phase and the aftermath of making that decision that ultimately creates the new life. I think people are impatient. They want results too quickly. They don't appreciate the amount of hard work that goes into actually crafting the life of your desires. And I think as a result of that, when they don't see results immediately, they burn out and retreat to what's safe and what they know versus welcoming failure, welcoming uncertainty, getting comfortable with risk, and remaining persistent in their vision to create something more in alignment with their authentic self.
I think one of the big problems, especially when it comes to reinvention, is in the Rocky movies, the montage of training is 2.5 minutes long. In reality, it can be a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think getting really visceral with what tough times feel like helps people who are going through them to not feel so personally cursed while they're going through them. You're not sure that the difficult thing that you're struggling with at the moment, the breaking of habits of hanging around with people who don't want the best for you, who you're getting out of a bad relationship, you maybe want to move and leave home and your parents don't want you to, whatever it might be, you don't even have the reassurance that there's going to be glory on the other side of this. And it doesn't feel as polished or as triumphant or even as noble. It just feels like confusing and dark and messy and like destitute. And, you know, even in portrayals of alcoholism and of addiction, it's really difficult to capture in popular cinema just how like mundanely desperate it is. There's not even any glory in the demise, so to speak. And I think that hearing about the challenges that people go through during reinvention helps everybody to feel less incapable of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow. So that's, basically what I was saying at the beginning, right? Is it's hard. It's hard to reinvent yourself. We've all become acclimated to bad habits, to negative self-talk, to an identity, right, that's been crafted over decades. And to undo that wiring and then reshape yourself, remold yourself into someone else, it's not easy work, right? And we can go into it with good intentions thinking that this is going to take a few months, right? And I'll be a different person, I'll be a different man. But the reality is the grind is long, right? And you have to go through it. You have to be consistent. You have to show up every day. You have to live with this uncertainty, with this unknowing of whether things are going to pan out. And to some degree, right, you got to have faith. And I think that's what they mentioned in the next part here. But yeah, it's not glorious. It's glorious in the Rocky movie, as Chris pointed out, right? We see them training and that montage and that acceleration up the learning curve within a span of minutes. But in reality, it's grueling. It's years. And so I think having that perspective, expanding your time horizon, realizing that this doesn't happen overnight, realizing that the reason many people stay the same, stay unfulfilled, never go after their dreams is because it's hard, but you chose differently. You chose to take the hard route in order to excel beyond what you're capable of at the moment, to become the best that you can be, to dig down deep, to find your potential, right? To leave a legacy that you can be proud of, right? To put it all on the line. So when your day comes to say goodbye to this world, that you feel fulfilled and satisfied. That's hard work, and you've chose to do it. You're a warrior. And so keep that perspective in mind, because it's not fun while you're going through it, right? Or at least it doesn't seem that way at first. I think eventually what we can do is we can learn to find joy in the journey, especially as we start accumulating small wins, especially as we start seeing other people who are on the journey with us. And this is part of why I created Strongman Challenge, is so we can see each other grow, so we can see each other become stronger, better men, so we can root for each other and So our energy becomes contagious. And as one person grows, so does the other. So this is partly why I'm sharing this video here, right? Is to let you know that there's other guys on this journey who have come out the other side, and here's their story. And it was very inspirational to me, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. So let's just continue.
That's why we love personal stories. We love hearing stories of people who met a certain fate and figured out how to rebuild their life. I think there is something infectious about that does give people hope for themselves. But I think you're correct. When you look in the rearview mirror, everything looks like it lined up perfectly to create this situation where I'm sitting across from you right now. But I can tell you, as somebody who has weathered more than a few large personal changes in my life, it is a very confusing, protracted time, and it takes a lot longer than people realize. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of judgment from other people. If you're breaking outside of a social expectation or a familial expectation, if you're trying something new, your peers, your friends are going to look at you a little bit differently. Perhaps they're not going to be as supportive as you might have expected. So there's a loneliness, I think, that is part of it as well. And I think with that is this testing process around your level of willingness, around your level of trust in yourself. And it's like being burned in a cauldron. Like I've said many times, like, if you're going to be a phoenix, you have to burn first. And I don't know if there's an end run around that burning process, because that is the process that, creates the new version of yourself. It's almost mandatory that one goes through their version of that. So I've been tested financially, emotionally, mentally, physically. And I think I'm wired for it as a result of my background, the way I was raised, my experiences in swimming. I feel like I'm well equipped to kind of handle that, but I've been brought to my knees more than once. And I can tell you, in those moments, all you feel is fear and this overpowering impulse to retreat back to what you know.
So an important point there that I want to touch on is that feeling that when you do decide to improve yourself, when you do decide to reach down and fulfill your potential, what ends up happening there is that validation that you're searching for from your friends, peers, family, right? Many times it isn't there because it's like crabs in the bucket. They want to keep you down. And so that process can be lonely. Another reason why I created a strongman challenge and to do it as a group, right? Because we all understand each other. We all understand what we're going through, the process of transformation. We're each trying to do it in our own unique way, but it's still the same regardless, right? It's still the same process regardless of what you're trying to transform and regardless of what you're trying to improve, right? There is this learning curve that you have to climb up. There is this grind that you have to go through, and we can all relate. And so it's not as lonely. It's not as lonely when you do it as a group. And that is what the Sovereign Mindset is for. That is what the Strongman Challenge is for. So that's the first, I would say, 11 minutes. There's more juicy stuff, but I think it's a good place to leave it. You guys let me know if you enjoy this kind of presentation. With that said, I hope you all have a fantastic day. Peace.